Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. You are listening to a rebroadcast of a previously recorded show.
I've talked to this author before, but in a lot of ways as a travel writer, he doesn't always write about the joys of travel. But this is his copy. The book he wrote now is The Joys of Travel. So I'm excited to welcome the program, Thomas Swick. Thomas, thanks for calling. And Thomas, don't you agree? Some of your travel writer books weren't always about joys, right?
That's true, and that's one of the reasons I wrote the book. I think we sometimes overlook, just the average traveler overlooks some of the pleasures that are part of travel. I mean, we're so focused on the destination and then the logistics that we don't appreciate some of the things that are part of travel, like anticipation, for example.
Great point. And so, Peter, I know you have a question for Thomas.
Yeah. So when writing your book and you're starting to think of the concept, like how was it when the idea hit you to do this? Like, I mean, was it something that you had pre-planned or just, what was your reason behind it, and how did you feel at the moment when you thought of the idea?
Well, I've been thinking about this for quite a while because I've been a travel writer for a few decades now. And, whenever you tell somebody you're a travel writer, the response is almost always enthusiastic. People think it's beyond incredible that you're paid to travel. And I started wondering what people find so attractive about travel. And lately I know it's the sites that have been getting all the publicity, 1,000 places to see before you die. But I think the pleasure we derive from travel goes beyond the things we see. And I started breaking a trip down into parts, and I realized, well, there's the anticipation before we go. There's the movement when we travel. The movement gives us pleasure, and I know a lot of us complain about air travel these days, but there's still you can have moments of pleasure, especially trains, ship travel. Then break from routine is another pleasure. And so I just, broke the trip down, and the final pleasure is the heightened appreciation of home that we get when we travel away from home. So that's how I got the idea. I'd been thinking about it for quite some time. What is it that people find so attractive about travel?
Gotcha. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thomas, I think you hit the nail on the head. A lot of people, really, at least in my experience, they get a lot of anxiety built up for, how am I going to pay for a vacation? Where are we staying? Are we going to catch our flights? Or are we going to lose our luggage? All the little idiosyncrasies and things that we worry about. And really, I think, at least in my experience, a lot of things that I've missed from traveling, especially, in a big trip, is that anticipation. Hey, we're going to, be away from home for 2 weeks and enjoy, wherever we're going. So I think it's really interesting the way that you write the book and put it together and share those things.
And
have you? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that there's 7 joys, and every one of them happens on every trip, no matter how long a trip it is or how far away you go, except for one, and that's the 6th joy, and that's emotional connection, and that's the one that's fairly rare. I don't feel an emotional connection to every place I go. But when I do, then that trip becomes really unique.
One of your favorites, I would say, probably, right?
Yes.
How's the feedback been on the book? Because it's just a really interesting way to write about traveling. Have you had a lot of people share their stories that they feel the same way?
Yes, I have, and thankfully no one said, "Well, you missed this joy," because I sometimes they'll say something like, "Oh, well, food must be one of them," and I'll say, "Well, food is part of novelty." I have that novelty is one of the joys. So, all the new foods that you taste when you travel, and also the sounds, the music you hear about that you've never heard before when you travel to foreign countries. So all of those fall under the category of the joy of novelty.
Thomas, now when I think about travel, I think about the specifics, and I want to hear about all 7 areas. If you can say them quickly and see which one touches my idea. I was just in New York City, and I dealt with the ups and downs of a trip to New York City. The anticipation of not having 5 kids and my wife with me, that was a joy. Also the ability to be my own boss and feel like the days when I was a professional wrestler traveling by myself. However, I poorly planned a couple things where I took the train stayed in New Jersey and took the train to New York City, and then didn't have the subway plans correctly. So there was a lot of ups and downs. Then I did Facebook Live that led to some excitement. And then I did make some connections from the trip that I'll never forget. Mm-hmm. So let's hear about those 7 joys.
Okay, the 7 joys. I mentioned anticipation, movement. The third is break from routine, because we all get in a rut, and when we travel, every day is different. Every day is new. I say only the traveler goes to sleep with absolutely no idea what tomorrow is going to bring. The fourth joy is novelty, which I mentioned. Discovery is the fifth, and that's all the things we learn when we travel. It's almost impossible to leave home and not come back more knowledgeable than when you left.
Oh, you bet.
Emotional connection is the sixth joy, the one I said that doesn't always happen, but when it does, it's wonderful. And the seventh is a heightened appreciation of home.
Oh yeah, at the end when I was tired, I had a heightened appreciation of home, Thomas. When it took X amount of time to get back on the train to New Jersey, I had a heightened anticipation of going back home for sure.
Well, this joy is connected to discovery, because when we leave our home, we can see it more clearly, and then when we leave our country, we can see our country more clearly. Partly just through comparisons that we make, just walking down the street, we see things that the people are doing that we don't do at home. And then when we talk to people, we learn their ideas and their thoughts about where we live. And, it just really expands our knowledge and our awareness of where we live.
All righty. So I got a question for you. What is one place that you haven't been yet that you want to go to? And a follow-up to that is, like, when you go to new places, do you see the experience as a whole, or do you see the experiences in different parts? Like thinking of it as to like the different categories.
Interesting. The one place I haven't, there are many places I haven't been. People think when you're a travel writer you've been everywhere, but the world is much larger than we sometimes imagine. But a country that I'd love to visit that I haven't is Iran. And as far as the experience, as a travel writer, when I go to a country, I usually come back with a few stories. So I basically break one trip down into several different experiences. So I'll write about one of the cities I go to, and then maybe the countryside if I go there. So my trips, it's impossible to come back from a country and write an article just about that whole country, because the articles are by necessity short. So I break them down into specific stories, and sometimes I'll have a story just about some experience I had one night. Something really interesting happened to me. That will make an interesting story, and I try to use that story to convey the essence of the place, but just using that one incident.
And it's so true, because like when I go on vacations, I think of it that way too, where I experience the full vacation and what it has to offer, both the ups and downs. And then usually what I do afterwards is like either recording or writing down my thoughts about the vacation. It's usually in bits and pieces about different topics, because my brain's just kind of sporadic that way. But yeah, I appreciate the answer. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Do you have Thomas, a favorite joy? Like, so when you travel to all these different countries and you write all these personal stories, do you find there's like one consistent thing for you in all the different places? Like, is it always the food or always the music? Is there something that really can tie all of your traveling together for you?
Yeah, I can, and that's the people. That's my main interest when I travel, the people. I try to get names of contacts before I leave, and I get in touch with them when I arrive, and I also just try to meet people on my own, because I think the thing with people is that they help your understanding of the place. You talk to them, you can learn about the place, and for me, it's only through people that I can have that emotional connection to a place. I know there are people who don't necessarily need people. They can really feel moved by a place just through the scenery and the landscapes or the architecture. But for me, it's always the people. For years when I traveled and I met these friends of friends, they'd ask me what I wanted to see. And that always surprised me because I thought, well, you live here, you show me what you think I should see. But I kept getting the question so often that I finally, and I didn't know what to say at first, but I finally found the answer to when they asked, what do you want to see? And it was neighborhoods. I wanted to go and see how people live. You know, I wanted to get away from the sites because as a travel writer, the sites have all been written about. But I wanted to go to the neighborhoods and see the local cafes and restaurants and shops and just see how the people live there. That's what interests me.
Very neat. Very interesting.
Now, Thomas, what panel are you going to be on for? Did you say you already had a panel Saturday, right? You have nothing today?
No, we have it today. We have it today at 11 o'clock. And it's a panel on travel writing. There are two other writers who've written one has written a book about the Caribbean, and one has a collection of pieces out of a lot of them set in Asia. So it's a mixed panel, but it's all travel writing.
All right, well, fantastic. One thing I always tell people when they travel is take pictures. It's such a thing that they'll always have memories of, especially if they're trying to promote things via social media and stuff. Take as many pictures as you can after you come home, because unless you have someone at your house that wouldn't rob you, because it's such an important part of the process of memories and log and write things down and remember them. I have so many experiences that I wish I jotted down that I didn't, that I have to really kind of think about in my career when I was a pro wrestler doing that. So best place we can purchase your book, Thomas, is where? Where can we go?
It's available in bookstores. It's available on Amazon. It's pretty easy to find. It's The Joys of Travel and Stories That Illuminate Them. And the publisher is Sky Horse Publishing.
Well, I'm happy, Thomas, you were writing about the joys of travel, because at times, as a writer, that when you do travel writing, it is not always joyous. It's about really the culture of that travel experience, and you're not looking at showing people the best place possible. You're looking at experiences and people. But it was good for the people that really could see this, and I'm going to look at those 7 joys the next time I travel. So good talking to you. I appreciate you calling. All right, take care. Okay, bye-bye.
Take care,
You're
bye.
listening to Author's Corner, live from the Miami Book Fair, powered by Life Improvement Radio. And we'll be back in just a moment.
Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own and shall not be construed in any way as advice from Life Improvement Radio. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our website. Personal perspectives expressed by the producers, writers, or editors will always be presented as such. Any rebroadcast or retransmission without the expressed written consent of Life Improvement Radio is strictly prohibited. Thanks for listening.